Good morning at Viewpoint, program of personalities, politicians, and perspectives.
And fluff-ups.
Yes, we've got perspectives today. We have personalities. We forget the politicians, although we have a politician with us, and by right of his being the mayor of the city. Mrs. Busby, how are you this morning? Are you defrosted yet?
Oh, gosh, it's just a tropical heat wave out there today, really. I mean, even the dog didn't resent going out this morning.
In opening up my folder this morning, I saw a quote that kind of reminded me of some of the things that have been going on TV recently. We have a fellow that thinks the rest of us out here in the hinterlands are all stupid and don't know what we're doing. So we'll just go ahead and write all this gobbledygook and we'll just scrub that right by him. And I saw one that kind of related to him. It just happened to see this. That he uses statistics as a drunken man uses lamppost for support rather than illumination. Well, that's what that dude out there at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue has been doing here for a good while. Okay, not for that. Let's start
Bill,
right out.
You've just got to get over this hiding your light under a bushel all the time. I worry about your heart.
By the way, Clay, this program is fair and unbalanced.
I can tell you.
I wonder if you'd pick up on that. Start with kudos, as we usually try to do on Viewpoint. The other afternoon, I went out to the college basketball team at the Pickering Zerkhammer court there in the Jack Nutt Arena at Lincoln College. Got ourselves a pretty good basketball team, Mr. Mayor.
Good.
A lot of fun to watch them. Point of my make, though, is that the music department under Scott Woger, they have furnished us with a pep band up there in the balcony. And they had a lot.
Oh, yeah.
Particularly, I want to point out the fact that when they played the national anthem, it just really rocked you. They did a wonderful job, and I just pass that on. And by the way, they're going to have a jazz concert this Saturday. We start at 7 p.m. at Johnson Center for the Performing Arts on the college campus. I urge you to go out there and listen to these young people. You don't even have to be a fan of jazz. Watch these young people perform. It'll be a fun evening, so I'd commend that to all of you folks out there. Why don't we get down to business and introduce our guests? And unless you have something to chime in.
Well,
she owns 50% of the show, Clay. So we let her.
And contributes little.
Well, once in a while she doesn't really contribute very much at all. No.
I think she's lazy. Well, anyway, we have some nice people with us.
Yes, we do.
Yes, we do. We kind of make fun of politicians, but we love Keith. Don't we? Jim?
Yes.
Yes, we do.
Me, I talk to Bill.
Bill didn't chime in,
Feel free. Just jump right in.
We'll jump right in sometime.
Now, Keith, of course, is the mayor of the beautiful downtown Lincoln, America.
Horace J. Gildersleeve is what I call him.
And with him is Clay Johnson, and Clay is a new city manager, and he's from out of town, aren't you?
Yeah.
Yes, you are.
If you can't tell by how I talk, it's definitely out of town.
Yeah, you definitely.
Yeah.
Good-looking young dude, Mr. Mayor.
Was that one of the qualifications that he had to be handsome?
We do have 5 women on the city council, so.
No wonder they voted for him. Well, we got that
That's why we have those extra meetings.
Well, so how about the city manager business? What do you think?
I'll tell you what attracts someone to it. It's the fact that you have something different on your plate every day. You don't. There's no monotony. There's not. You don't sit and just do a widget every day. It's a new, exciting thing that falls in front of you, falls in your lap every day.
Were you always like a puzzle-solving type guy?
Probably. Except I wasn't big with the Legos. That was more my brother's thing. I would get frustrated with Legos and throw them away.
That was too mundane for you.
It's too bad you're so young. You could have had Tinker Toys and an erector set when you were little.
I did have Tinker Toys.
Oh, good.
Sure did.
Good. Well, I'm glad to hear that.
Probably the motorized kind, too.
And now here you are in Lincoln. And what's the background, Keith, of our deciding that we needed a city manager here because he could handle fill in the blanks?
Right.
The City of Lincoln is a $13 million annual enterprise.
Say that again, please, sir.
A $13 million annual enterprise. So we are comparable in size to places like Lincoln College or Lincoln Christian University, and we didn't have any type of full-time administrative head over the entire city itself. So we had department heads that ran things like the police department, street department, those types of things. The mayor is a part-time position. We didn't have anybody overseeing and coordinating all of those efforts. And I can't think of any other organization that is that size that doesn't have somebody focused full-time on the overall coordination and development and moving forward of the city. So we wanted a city administrator to step in to handle things like the budget, to handle things like infrastructure improvements and planning those. The city had gone for a long time without anything like that at all, and we several years ago made the decision to allocate dollars for that. We built it into the budget. We planned for it. We had Sue McLaughlin here for a while. We had hired her through a temp agency, and she went on and found a full-time position in Bloomington and left. And then we engaged a search firm and ended up finding and identifying Clay as the candidate we wanted, and we were able to get him here. But
I want to emphasize a point that you made, though, and not everybody understands this. The mayor is a part-time job.
Yes.
I mean, if you had to take care of your family on the salary of a mayor, I'd have you 10 cups out on Kreski's Corner.
Right.
Because,
right.
So therefore, I mentioned that and emphasize it because a lot of people think, well, why do we need somebody else? We got to, well, you do have a job.
Right.
Yeah.
And
it's the American way, you know.
and that takes a lot of time.
Sure.
I mean, it is.
Now,
sure, and I don't. Anybody being elected mayor, I would argue, probably doesn't have the skills to run in and run a city full time.
That makes sense to me.
You mean your budget at home is less than $13 million?
Yeah, yeah, a little bit. And you know, somebody elected, even if you I've been an alderman for several years, you don't know all the nuances in things like collective bargaining, in employee benefits, financing, city finances, those types of things. It's a detailed business, and we needed a professional to come in to help us manage it and move us in the right direction.
We had one council member who had got all the expertise in financing.
Absolutely.
And as Judy says, Buzz found another job. And
Buzz thought having a city administrator was important. He was
He really
was
did.
pushed
I remember
on that.
he
because he recognized that there's a need.
Right.
When you can't. I don't care how nice those. Boy, by the way, you made a great appointment here with Todd Morning. Take my hat off to you. That was a very good appointment, sir.
Todd, I'm looking forward to having Todd on the council.
Yes, he's a bright guy. He's a very, very, very nice man too. But the point being, I don't care how good all the council members are, and they're all each in their own right have their own expertise. None of them can have the expertise that's required by a city manager,
right,
to fulfill all the obligations and responsibilities. And I know, by the way, just the other day, this young man found some extra money and somewhere, hidden in a closet somewhere, so that you can do a little more on lighting.
Yeah.
It's a little kind of quick aside example.
Sure, that the Pulaski Streetscape project, right, in order to make it, and that was funded with some grant dollars that we got from the state. So in order to make it fit within available grant dollars, we had to cut some things out, and one of the things we had to cut out were the decorative lights. So if you're downtown in the area and you see the bases with the orange cones on that, it's all wired up, the bases are there, and they're ready for the decorative lights that are going to go in. Mm-hmm. And we had to cut that out and find some dollars elsewhere. And as we talked about it, Clay was looking through the budget, and we had some remaining proceeds from a bond that we'd issued in 2010, and it's just about it's actually a little more than what we're going to need, but it'll work nicely and take care of getting those lights for us.
Is that kind of a primary focus of a city manager, the finance end of it, which has to be an astronomical job?
I would say that there's a large component of it that is related to budgetary analysis and finance, but there's also a lot of organizational management that has to happen too, and strategic management. You have to make sure that the goals that are set by the elected officials are reflected in your everyday activities, and that includes your budget. And the goals of each department. I think of a city organization, if you want to see it visually, as an hourglass. You have the residents of the city of Lincoln at the top, at the widest portion. Then you get down to the alderman and the mayor. And then at this little choke point is the city administrator. And from that point, you go down back into your organization. You go into your department heads and then the frontline workers. So somehow you have to take all of the wants and needs of the city of Lincoln that is in this broad upper part, bring it down into what's feasible, and then take that and disseminate it amongst the organization.
Do you have the latitude, since this is your expertise, of suggesting at all to the council if they're debating some area of city business, of saying, well, you might even think about this component?
I think that's probably the most important thing that I can do, is give all the information that I have, give a recommendation as someone that's there day in and day out, sees hopefully what comes of those recommendations, and then lay it on the table for the elected people to make an informed decision. I think it's critical that people understand I really don't make the decisions. That's not why I'm here. I'm here to guide, I'm here to inform, and then let the people who are elected by the residents make good decisions.
Clay, I'd like to back up just a minute, if you will, please. I guess the question would be, whence cometh your expertise? In other words, what is your background, sir? And where did we get you, and how do we lucky enough to have a good city manager on site here?
Sure. I got interested. My dad was actually in government. He worked for the USDA for years. I was kind of intrigued in
He's probably a pretty nice fellow, notwithstanding that.
he is a pretty good guy, I'd like to think.
Government employees aren't necessarily the high spot for anybody. Go ahead, sir.
He was a star, I'll say that. And I was always intrigued in what he did day in and day out. So I went to college. I actually went to college thinking I'd be a doctor. I enjoyed science and math a lot, but I'm afraid of blood.
That would be a drawback.
It was kind of a drawback in the whole doctor thing.
Blew that, huh?
Yeah.
That'd be like wanting to be a bus driver, but you don't know how to drive.
Yeah. It's like, I can operate on you, but I'm just not gonna. I'll stand over here.
If you promise you won't bleed, pinky swear.
Yeah, as long as you don't bleed, I'm good. But I deviated from that in college. I thought I wanted to go into internet business, but I'm actually a telecommunications major, which my mom thinks is a telemarketer. She thought I was going to be on the phone all the time, and I tried to convince her no. But I did an internship with the Kentucky League of Cities my senior year of college, and through that work, I saw what the municipal league in Kentucky did for small and medium-sized communities, and the support that they provided. And I really saw a need through that there needed to be professional management. There needed to be someone there who could help influence good decision making. So I tried to figure out, what do you have to do to be in government? What do you have to do to lead in government? So I started looking into a Master's of Public Affairs. That's what many city managers around the country have, as just a baseline credential for them taking the job. So I looked into programs, and Indiana University is one of the top 2 programs in the country for Masters of Public Affairs. Applied, fortunately got in. Once I got there, I had a professor named Orville Powell, who is one of the best out there. And he sold me the moment I walked in the door. So I knew that this was something for me. Went through the 2 years there, did a few internships and fellowships while I was in school. Went to Munster, Indiana after graduation, served as the assistant to the town manager and then assistant town manager in that 4-year period. After that, I'm here.
Well,
bless your heart, you're a sharp cookie.
That answers the question. Whence cometh his expertise?
That's right.
Yes, I guess.
It's interesting. You had a professor in college. The college campuses today, unfortunately, there's too many nuts out there that are teaching our kids. But
there is that.
It's true, you know. A lot of guys are way off. But anyway, you found this college coach or professor, and he kind of clicked your trigger.
Yep, absolutely.
You had some. There's an individual. It was a teacher professor that made an impact on this, and obviously, I'm sure a lot of other young people that came under his tutelage. Besides that,
so
it's great.
Absolutely,
it's great to have professors like that.
He was for a long time a city manager in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, Durham, North Carolina, Gainesville, Florida. And when he started talking, he talked about his passion of the profession, and it was pretty magnetic. And once you listen to him, you're hooked. And I think a lot of other people were in the program as well.
But what a blessing to be young and to have this epiphany, and to know who you want to be when you grow up. Because I mean, people get to be my age, like me, for instance. They still don't know who you want to be. There's
I'm
that.
sitting there not going to say one word, Mr. Mayor.
Discretion's a better part of valor, Bill.
That is kind of the magic of education, though. I mean, there's a lot of emphasis, talk now, even about online education, but really it does all come down to that one-on-one relationship. That it might have been an elementary school teacher that sparked something in you. It might have been high school, college, whatever it is. And I think everybody has a story a little bit like that. And it's kind of the intriguing, wonderful thing about education.
Right here at Lincoln College, we had a lady named Annalie Bailoff. That was Coach Bailoff's wife. She made history come alive, and she was just an outstanding teacher, professor. And it's nice to run into somebody like that because, and if you haven't, it's almost axiomatic. Your grades in that particular course are going to be better because you're motivated.
Yeah, that's right.
Right. Yeah. Well, let's. You briefly said about Pulaski Street. Let's talk about that. Sure. The aims and goals for this whole project and where you are.
Sure, we'll do. Pulaski Street streetscape there, that one block, and then kind of the half a block when we turned and went down Kickapoo Street in front of the theater, really all came about because we got a grant several years ago, a $675,000 grant for downtown revitalization from the state of Illinois. And we had done a lot of planning. We have a downtown redevelopment plan, a downtown revitalization plan, and several other components that entered into that. But we had some dollars left over, and we had to spend up the rest of those grant dollars. And in consultation with DCEO, they actually identified that block as a good block for us to start on the streetscape effort. And I think the reason that was identified as a good block to start was at the time we were talking about it, the Oasis was still on the corner there. Yes, and there's a lot of pedestrian traffic in that block because of the arcade and people going back to the Dobby Shea parking lot, the courthouse employees going back and forth, and folks at the Oasis. There were some accessibility issues that we needed to deal with, particularly at the corners and mid-block in terms of getting folks having ADA accessibility. There also was in that block, if you remember, before the work was done, there was kind of a unique odor that sometimes is in certain parts of downtown where the sewer lines weren't perhaps done the way they should have been. And we thought that was an opportunity to rectify that. And also the sidewalk there was just, I don't know if you remember, there was a little section kind of in front of the arcade that was green. I don't know why it was a green sidewalk, but it was green and it was starting to sprawl.
Well, it was McCarthy. McCarthy was Irish. That's the reason. That was McCarthy property.
So there were lots of reasons why that block was selected. And we wanted it to be a demonstration block, basically, that we could get it done with the available state dollars and also show people what the rest of downtown could look like once we identify the dollars to do it. So where we are, most of the work is done. We're still waiting to get the street lights in there. There's a little bit of planting that still will probably wait till the spring, I would imagine. But
it's getting nippy out there now.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, but we've been very pleased with the way it looks and with the pavers and the accents, and the curb extensions have gotten some comments. But folks need to realize that part of it was designed that way to make it safer for pedestrians. I think a lot of us in Lincoln think of downtown as a thoroughfare. So in other words, we go through downtown to get somewhere. We may be going to the high school, or we may be going, wanting to go to the west side, and we go through downtown.
Yeah.
Well, we do that locally, but for visitors and tourists, we want it to be a destination. And we want them to feel safe when they're downtown shopping, visiting stores, visiting businesses or service organizations, whatever it might be. And by pulling those curb extensions out, the pedestrians actually get out to be able to look past the line of cars to see the traffic coming, and it's a bit of a safer environment for them. Now, the streets there aren't as wide as some. As you know, Broadway, there by Hallmark and MKS, Broadway is about 5 miles wide there between the shops and the courthouse.
Yeah, really.
And I know a lot of pedestrians are uncomfortable sometimes getting across that wide expanse, but that's kind of the idea with the curb extensions, is to make it safer for pedestrians.
Well, of course, that block has a high curb too.
Exactly.
The access is a little bit difficult for some people.
And Pulaski doesn't. That block of Pulaski and actually around on Kickapoo, that wasn't the same.
Yeah.
You go on Kickapoo where Abe's is, or Prairie Years, and you've got that large jump up there. So there are some issues that made some other blocks a little more difficult, but we really wanted Pulaski, to use up those state dollars, but then also be a demonstration for people to be able to see and then dream what the rest of it might look like when we're able to get to it.
If I may be so bold, I'm just curious as to how...
She can be bold, by the way. I want to tell you that. I just want to emphasize that.
That's good.
Tell all my secrets. Go ahead. How in the world did somebody come up with the idea that we should have those high curbs? It couldn't be that they've excavated, I don't think.
That predates me even, not only the mayor.
Well, I thought maybe there was a note in a book someplace that said we thought those high curbs would be cute.
Yeah,
and canopies.
Yeah, I don't know. It might have been, a little bit might have been downstairs access, because there are parts of downtown years ago where there was actually an underneath ground access, if you will.
Well, it was not unusual to have a core shoot.
Right, exactly.
Oh, well,
exactly.
I got
in
one
those
of those.
days. Yeah, right.
But there are some spots where
We probably better take a commercial break when Mr. Ash is, when he
gets a little
he's
nervous.
a busy guy with the camera and the control and the cat and all. So,
Jeez.
oh, by the way, Clay, we meant to introduce you to the cat.
Yeah.
Right back live in the program here at Viewpoint. After having paid obeisance to our sponsors, to whom we are very much indebted, and we thank them very much. We have with us as a guest this morning the Honorable Mayor Keith Snyder and our city manager, Clay Johnson, who's sometimes known as Clay Y'all.
I'll answer that.
We have a question. We have somebody on the caller. Go right ahead, please, caller.
Yes, you're talking about lighting downtown. Is there any plan for traffic lights, stoplights?
There is a question for you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
And that, by the way, is a refreshing question. People could slide up there to see those flashing red lights.
Yeah.
And personally, I don't think that's a bad idea, but I could be in the minority on that.
Well,
so go right ahead,
sure.
please.
Here's the situation.
Thank you, caller.
Yep. Here's the situation with the lights. Several years ago, the lights quit working. They were, obviously red,
old.
green.
They were old.
Back to the yellow. They quit working, and we went to try to find parts. And what we found out was that the lights were so old that there were no available parts from any source. We did locate a place that had spare parts, and it was actually a museum that had stoplights. So we literally had no way to get replacement parts for those lights because of their age. So then we looked into replacing the lights. And to replace the lights, you can't just get new lights and plop them on those big concrete bases. What's required now by IDOT is that the traffic standards have to be the kind, and you might see them, they're very skinny at the bottom, and what happens is when you hit them, they snap off.
Yeah, as opposed to a resistance.
As opposed to those huge concrete blocks that we have.
Which don't have much give.
Right.
Not really.
So we would have to go to the new standards and the new light standards. So we're getting all new systems, and they were talking about a cost at that time, and this was probably 4 years ago, a cost of $75,000 to $80,000 per intersection.
Per intersection.
Just for the stoplights. So the decision was made to turn them all to blinking red and to turn them into basically four-way stops. When we did the downtown studies, one of the studies that we looked at was a traffic study. And there are certain standards now where you have to have certain traffic volumes to actually have the suggested traffic volumes to have stop lights, working stop lights. And what we found was that none of our downtown intersections would qualify today under the standard definition of an intersection that would need stop lights, working stop lights. So at the intersections there of Pulaski and Kickapoo, we've taken the lights out and put in stop signs. And eventually, as the rest of the streetscape happens, all of those lights will be replaced with stop signs, making them four-way stops.
Either way, it's worked. The blinking red lights work very well. I've never seen anybody be unfair at those blinking lights. And the four-way stop signs work very well, too, if people choose to stop. I don't find that that's a popular pastime here necessarily. We have what we call a check stop. You check both ways. If nobody's coming, just roll on by.
Right.
You know, I'm wondering if the lady who called has an interest in having conventional lights the way we used to have them before they went on us. And of course, the cost factor right now is just incredible. But I just wonder what the folks out there in the ether land think about the way it's going right now. As I said, personally, it seems to be okay from my standpoint.
I've heard from some
I just wonder what your reaction is.
Yeah, from downtown merchants like the fact that the traffic, particularly on Kickapoo, has slowed down.
Sure.
When the lights were, could be green.
And you can see it a half block away.
Yeah, you fly through there. Right,
yeah.
Right. And I think I have had some people say that they liked being able to drive through and not having to stop. Now, I've not had any visitors that have said anything negative about the stop lights. People from out of town don't bring that up because I think they like being able to drive up to a corner and
take a look,
and then drive slowly through the next block and take a look and those types of things. So,
okay.
That's
have another caller?
Hang on.
All righty. Jim is busy boy.
Okay.
Like a one-arm paper hanger.
Just hang fast. We'll bring the caller on board. Go right ahead, please, caller.
Yes, my comment is that I think them stoplights are working better now than they did when they were working. I mean, you can get through there. The traffic's not all backed up. It's just much quicker to go through town.
Well, I think that's what the mayor was alluding to, is that people seem to be, like yourself, sir, satisfied with the system the way it's going right now.
I agree with him.
Okay, well, thank you for your call. We appreciate that very much, sir.
Yes,
so there's weigh-in of another individual, and I think his approach is just what you mentioned, Keith, is that the idea that people they're all careful drivers, and they slide up there and take a look and move on. And you brought up something just a second ago here, more than 2 seconds, about the fact when they were conventional lights, greens, caution, and so forth, you see a half block away, it's green, and so you can have attention, maybe speed up so you can make that green light. So I guess that translates to people are happy with what we're doing now.
You mentioned, too, the business of IDOT now says that if you're going to put in stop lights, you have to have so much traffic flow and so forth. I'm sure there are a million departments out there who have policies about you can't turn left unless you can turn right or whatever. And I suppose that's where you come in too, Clay, is familiarizing yourself with these multitudinous regulating agencies.
And we have another caller, so go right ahead, please, caller.
I'm the one that called earlier, and
yes,
you asked for my opinion. And so my concern is with our angle-in parking, when you have high-profile vehicles, you can't always see the stop sign.
Okay.
For us that live here, we know it's there, but those that are not familiar with the setup, it blocks the stop sign.
Okay, Mr. Mayor, you want to handle that little?
Sure. I think they're at the new intersection there at Pulaski and Kickapoo. The curb extensions have pulled that out, so the stop sign isn't at what the old corner used to be. The stop sign is out more at the edge, and that will help a little bit. And I think as we go forward, we're going to have to, you're right, because the corners are kind of set back now, and if there were vans or things like that, and if we just tried to yank out the stop lights and put in stop signs exactly where they are, there could be some visibility issues, so we need to be conscious of that.
So the lady brought up a very valid point there.
Sure.
And I think that there's a couple of things that are worth bringing up. One of them is something that Keith mentioned earlier, that the design of the new streetscape is to calm traffic. So hopefully traffic is moving through those areas at a slower pace, reducing the likelihood of accidents and things of that nature. But there's also ways that the city can promote, if for lack of a better word, four-way intersections with stop signs. They make blinking stop signs and other ways to notify residents that, hey, this intersection is changing, just be aware of it. So maybe when the next set come along, we can do a few new tactics to make people aware of the change.
And I think we have another caller who would like to weigh in on whatever subject. Go right ahead, please, caller.
Yes, as one of the downtown merchants, I don't know where they get the idea that we're happy with it, because I'm not. I miss the stoplights. I've seen too many accidents on the corner of Broadway and Kickapoo, and I've also seen people almost get run over because people don't make a complete stop. When they make a right turn, they just keep going, and if there's a pedestrian in that walk area, they almost get run over. I've seen 3 people almost do it. I have a camera sitting on that corner to show it, and I don't think it's good, and I don't know who asked the merchants, but nobody ever asked us.
Okay.
All right. Well, now we have a merchant that made his wishes and comments known. Do you have a comment at all, sir?
Well, as we were going through the design work for downtown streetscape, actually at several different spots, we had public open houses and allowed folks to see the designs that were in progress. No work currently has been done at that corner of Broadway and Kickapoo.
Yes. Right.
They are the existing stop lights, and I think even if we had working stop lights, people can still turn right. Stop. You can turn right on red, and people that are not careful, there are going to be instances there, and that's not the design of the sidewalk necessarily causing that. It's people not being careful when they drive. So we downtown, where there are a lot of people walking around, people need to be conscious of that, need to be careful of the pedestrians that are there, because they could be local people, they could be visitors. So
but when there are accidents, you can't blame signs and you can't blame cars. Those don't stop.
They don't drive, do they?
It's people who have to stop. And as a defensive driver, you'd be careful at any unmarked intersection. Yeah. You'd be careful at a marked intersection, because that sign, whether it's blinking red or whether it's just a regular old-fashioned stop sign, isn't going to stop a soul.
Well, and with the way the street corners are now before the streetscape design, you have to step off the curb into the street to get out to see the cars coming.
Yes.
With the new streetscape, the curb extensions pull it all the way out to the edge of the parking lane, so you can actually stand behind the curb where there is a little bit of protection. You can stand behind the curb and actually see the cars coming, so you can see if a car is going to stop or not. You don't have to actually get into the street to be able to proceed across the street. You can make that decision, and you're just walking across the driving lanes as opposed to walking across the parking lane, the driving lane, and another parking lane.
Let's get back to streetscapes just a minute, if you will, please. We have completed, not quite complete, but virtually completed the block there on the south side of the square. The next block, as money becomes available, will be where, sir?
Well, next spring, when David Lanterman completes his theater expansion, he will take it from where it left off in front of the existing theater, and he'll take it all the way down to the corner of Clinton and around the corner to the alley. So that will all be done as part of his theater expansion. And then we have to, after that's done in the spring, we've got to find the dollars to take the next steps.
And the next step would be which block? The what we call the Landauer block? That would be the north. That would be the north side of the square.
It could be, yeah. It could
not
be.
Necessarily, though.
No. We want to. we have to be mindful of the available dollars. And one thing we found out on Pulaski was when you do a smaller project, the cost escalates.
Yes.
Because you're not spreading it across
unit
the wider
cost,
scope.
yeah.
Yep, exactly, unit cost. So we would prefer to do several blocks and have that unit cost come down a little bit. Now, we're going to have probably some assistance from some state grants. We have applied for those in the past and haven't been fortunate enough to get them, but maybe with the change in administration coming up, we might be looked upon a little more favorably in the future, but we'll see.
But they say there's no money in the state. Probably isn't. Or the federal government. So I bet that the business of getting grants is just like hen's teeth.
It has dried up a little bit, yeah. But I mean, the funds that we have applied for in the past are called the Illinois Transportation Enhancement Program. So those are federal dollars that come through from basically the U.S. DOT, and they're designed to do transportation enhancements. And I imagine we'll continue to try to get those dollars. And one thing that we were commented on in our applications in the past was that you haven't started the process. You know, you don't have design plans, you haven't done any work. Well, we have now. We have design plans, we've done some work, so we can show them that we have started it on our own, if you will.
On our own initiative.
And we need their dollars to help us finish the effort.
It's just across the board, isn't it? You
Craig,
can't get it until you have experience, and you can't have experience until you got it.
That's exactly right. You may have observed, Clay, since you've come with us, and we're happy to have you aboard, sir.
Thank you.
The lack of a quote, for one of a better terminology, an anchor store downtown around our square. We have some wonderful little boutique type stores there, and I'd name some, but if I do, I'll start forgetting somebody. Then I'll slight somebody, and I don't want to do that. But we have some wonderful specialty stores around the square. We don't have an anchor store per se. Any thoughts about that? Any comments about that, sir?
Only that most downtowns that you see in terms of revitalization don't have one big anchor store, and they do tend to fall more towards the specialty novelty stores, because I think that there is a market out there for that. You know, the only downtown that I've really seen have those big name stores and big name anchors is in Naperville. And Naperville has a high cost of living. They have a very
that's another unique community up there.
Absolutely. And we're talking affluent community. We're talking a lot of people in and around that area to supply the downtown. But when you're talking very successful revitalizations, you see local small businesses move towards the downtown and promote their novelty store, but they have to see first that the city's not going to leave them behind. And the Streetscape project is one example of that the city's willing to invest in its own community, in its downtown, and it's going to be a viable place for residents and outsiders alike to start businesses.
And we're coming up on the holidays, obviously.
Sure.
You know, next Friday is Black Friday, when all the merchants obviously encourage people to get out and hit the malls.
When the prices get moved around.
Yeah, which even now starts on Thanksgiving.
Yes.
Next Saturday, though, the 29th, is Small Business Saturday. So nationwide campaign to encourage people to shop small, and we certainly want to encourage people to shop downtown Lincoln. We're going to have some special events down there, so they can come down and get some prizes, but also see all the wonderful things that our merchants have to offer next Saturday, the 29th.
Good. I thank you both for being with us. Clay, you keep hunting for money, and I'm sure that they'll help you channel it into the appropriate places.
Yeah.
Well, it's a comforting feeling to know that we have some people in charge that are not only serving us, but they're serving us in a more of an altruistic way. Now, Clay's job, he's a professional city manager. That's his job. Our mayor, he has other irons in the fire of necessity. It's nice to have people who will serve, and we appreciate that very much. Clay, he might come under, the mayor might come under this mantle as we close. We always try to find some comment of the program. Keith might fulfill this. A successful politician knows how to get into the public eye without irritating it.
Yes.
Thank you very much for Viewpoint. Keith, Clay, thank you very much for being with us, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.